Welcome back. Last time we left the group of the Paravaes. They had feathers, long arms, and big hands, and hollow bones. Nonetheless, they all lived on the ground. But now it seems that some groups of them begun an arboreal life. The first group split from the Paravaes about 168 million years ago. Their name is Scansoriopterigidae. These small theropods climbed on trees, and some of them, like Epidexipteryx, used their long fingers to dig maggots out of the bark. Other species, like Xiaotingia, Scansoriopteryx, and Euxyanosaurus tried to glide with their feathers on arms and tails. Very weird was Ombopteryx and his larger cousin Yichi. What did nature here? They looked like a feathered bat, and this was the first approach of theropods to an active flying. Most of these very strange dinosaurs are found in China. They lived between 165 and 160 million years ago, about 10 million years before the first birds. These flyers died out. About 166 million years before our time, another group of very bird-like dinosaurs came up in the Middle Jurassic China. This group contains members like Ornis, Pedopenna, Eosinopteryx, and Sericornis. The Ornis in the name means birds, even they are not systematically classified as birds. I think when we see the reconstructions and these dinosaurs looked in this way, we would recognize birds. A very close relative, sometimes got in the same clade, was Enantiornites. This very bird-like Chinese dinosaur lived about 160 million years ago. Maybe Enantiornites and his companions sometimes used their feathers to glide. But like the Scansoriopterigidae, all of them vanished at the same time. About 155 million years ago, the era of the Paravaes ends and the clade splits into the Aviale and the Deinonychosauria. This is surprising because the raptors seem to be less bird-like as the Enantiornidae. But new reconstructions show that these dinosaurs was fully feathered and looked more like hunting turkeys. They split later into two divisions, the Troodontidae and the Dromaeosauridae. The Troodontidae evolved to the smartest of all dinosaurs. The other division split into the very aggressive raptors and the very interesting Microraptorians. The Microraptorians lived about 120 million years ago, 30 million years after the first bird. But they had feathered wings on arms and legs. It seems the legs was used to control the flight direction. They have not been active flyer but excellent gliders. The first raptors had an arboreal life and turned back to ground later. The clade Aviale finally is the group we call birds. We leave now the domain of dinosaurs and theropods, even we know that this division is very artificial. The oldest bird we accept to be really one is the famous Archaeopteryx. This bird was discovered about 1860 in the Solnhofen limestone in Germany. There exist 5 fossils, but the most famous is the one with the petrified feathers. Archaeopteryx became a larger brother in 2019, now called Alcmonaves. Another larger specimen is known as Welnhoferia, a smaller fossil as Juropteryx. But it's still not sure if they are own species. This birds lived in the same region and time like Archaeopteryx, about 151 to 148 million years ago. The skeleton shows both characteristics of a bird, but also of a dinosaur. Unlike modern birds, Archaeopteryx had a long dinosaur tail, clawed hands, and an underdeveloped sternum. This was a reason to set in question the flying skills of these first birds. The lack of strong breast muscles refuses the possibility to be a good flyer. He was able to lift of and escape from dangerous situations, but he didn't travel to far places. Pterosaurs was still the rulers of the air and the best flyers of this time. There's no big difference between Archaeopteryx and the earlier Paravaes. But why died they out? An answer could be that the big forests of China vanished at this time, in Germany they remained. So they lost the habitat, and Archaeopteryx was on the right place at the right time. In the time of Microraptor, China was covered with big forests again. And these forests was the habitat of a lot of interesting early birds. 5 million years later, the Aviale split into two groups, the Geholonithidae and the Euaviale. Geholonus is a long-tailed bird, very similar to Archaeopteryx. He lived between 122 and 120 million years ago. The group survived to the last Cretaceous. Rahanavis lived in Madagascar 70 million years ago. We see the lack of information within 50 million years, there's much place for discoveries. The sister group, the Yuuav Islands, means the good Avia lands. However, the first known representant Jixianggornis, who lived 124 million years ago, was very similar to the earlier birds, with a long tail. The sister taxon of Jixianggornis are the Avabrevicata, birds with short tails. An early representant of this group is Sapiornis, who lived contemporary to Jixianornis. It's a remarkable step of evolution, and this used just about 2 million years. Sapiornis was more a glider, like the modern birds of prey. The sister taxon of Sapiornis is the clade Pygostylia. The pygostyle is a structure of a group of the remaining tail bones. Sapiornis had a small pygostyle, but the pygostyle of Confuciornis was very good evolved. Confuciusornis lived contemporary to Jixianggornis and Sapiornis, but the origin of the group dates back to 138 million years ago. He still needed to climb on trees to start an active flight out from the gliding phase. Remarkable detail of Confuciusornis are his two very long tail feathers. The next species, Kongmingia, had a full evolved pygostyle. The systematic position of this bird was long disputed. Today he will got in the clade Jinguofertizidae with the two members Kongmingia and Jinguofertis. They had large tail feathers and advanced shoulders and thorax. Maybe they was able to lift up from ground. The sister taxon of them are the Ornithothoracines, the birds with a modern thorax. The modern sternum of birds is a wonderful structure to support very powerful breast muscles. These allows the birds a very active flying. About 136 million years ago, the group split into the Enantiornithes and the Enantiorniths. The Enantiorniths are also called the good birds, the Enantiornithes are the opposite birds. But for the remaining Cretaceous, this bird clade was dominant and evolved a great diversity. The main difference was the articulation of scapula and coracoid. Enantiorniths had toothed beaks, but this was no difference to the first Enantiorniths. The first Enantiornithes lived in China and Mongolia, but 130 million years ago, the group reached Spain and Russia. After the split of the Pengornithidae and Longipterigidae, the remaining group is called Enantiornithes or the good opposite birds. Most fossils of the first wave was found in China. The Enantiornithes evolved different shapes and adapted to different niches. Like modern birds, they lived on ground, on trees, in the water, and some of the as bird of prey. But most of the first wave vanished 112 million years ago, with some exceptions. One is Elsornis, who lived between 80 and 70 million years ago in Mongolia, the other is Otogrones, who survived till 98 million years. The first wave was rich in several groups and bird species. It's difficult to put all of them into a system, so most are not properly classified. If you see the reconstructions, they would not really differ from modern birds, except of the claws on the wings and the teeth in the beaks. After the decline of the first wave, a second wave emerged in Mongolia. Most groups remained in Central Asia, some reached far countries like Australia and Mexico. The group of the Avasauridae was in Lebanon, Europe, North America, and Argentina. But finally the remaining groups of Enantiornithes in South America and Central Asia vanished together with the dinosaurs. It's unknown why they extinct and the Enantiorniths survived. But we will see that a large amount of them didn't survive too. During the first wave, the Enantiornithes was very dominant. 2/3 or more of the birds was Enantiornites. Then, 112 million years ago, came the decline of both groups. Maybe it could have a context to the extreme hot climate in this time. With the second wave, the Enantiornites reclaimed their leadership, till about 90 million years ago. Now the Enantiorniths overtake. Even the Enantiornithes can rise again, they never will be dominant. The end of the Cretaceous show that both groups had a big loss on species, but a small amount of Enantiorniths survived, while the history of Enantiornithes ends here. Next time more about the Enantiornithes. Have a good time.